Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. We do have a full board, full attendance, so thank you very much for showing up. Welcome to the Town of Pendleton's August Planning Commission meeting. We'll have the board to review the minutes as submitted. Additions or corrections. If not, we'll entertain motion to approve.
To approve the June 3rd minutes.
Thank you, Carol. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brad. All those in favor of the minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, there's no old business tonight. First item on new business is the 2026 American Disabilities Act Transition Plan. Please.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So for our 2026 ADA transition plan, to our commitment as a town to uphold and enhance the quality of life for all residents within our community, the planning department is very pleased to present and have presented tonight our 2026 Americans with Disabilities Act ADA transition plan. Our last ADA transition plan, it took place in 2015, and we are excited to share the progress and the developments that have taken place and transpired over the course of this last year. The town has partnered with Madison County Council of Governments, and under the lead and leadership of Baru, Masunori, and Brett Lott, in review and self-evaluation of our policies, our programs, and our public facilities to ensure that our compliance and continued efforts to be and become in full compliance here in the near future in accordance with the Americans with Disability Act. So tonight we have Baru and Brett here with us. Baru is going to provide an overview of this plan. She's going to cover over the main updates and the progress that have been made and the identified priority projects that are essential to provide sound customer care and service for disabled persons. Before turning it over to Baru and her team, Connor and myself, we really want to extend our gratitude for all the hard work that they have done in and on this plan and development. Brett came in here over the course of several months, meeting with our team here, went out and analyzed every curb ramp within our community to see if they were a pass or a fail. I believe there was about 19 entries in every assessment, so a lot of time was put into this. And Baru herself, she's really put in a lot of work in the text updates and making sure that it meets the standards. That being said, thank you very much, and I will turn it over to Baru, and she'll share with you our new plan. Also, in follow-up too, there's a second piece. There is a company document. It is Title VI, the implementation plan. We have that under development currently, and we will be presenting that to you in our September Planning Commission meeting. So, okay.
I'm Baru Suri, Madison County COG. So an ADA transition plan is a requirement from Title II of the ADA.
Please, come on, hold the mic down over for you. Thank you.
It's a plan that describes how your community will remove existing structural barriers to access, and includes a self-evaluation of your structural facilities, as well as a plan for how you will address the removal of barriers and when you will do that. In addition to being a federal requirement, it's also required by INDOT for INDOT recipients to have one. A lot of communities have an old one, including Pendleton, but current best practice is to treat it like a living document. And INDOT, in fact, expects updates every year now in order to qualify for funding and compliance. So the major update to this transition plan is an inventory of sidewalk curb ramps in Pendleton's right of way. So basically, we went out and evaluated ramps at every intersection in Pendleton to determine whether or not they met current PROAG standards. In addition to that, we also found locations where a new curb ramp So the plan includes the map and the summary of the inventory. But the data itself was provided to the town digitally. And based on this information, council staff came up with a schedule for gradual improvements over the next quarter. So I guess we can view the maps. Yeah. Scroll down. So that's an overview of all the passing and failing ramps in Hamilton. And then the yellow points are points where we think the new legislation might be required. So this is actually an improvement over the previous ramp inventory that was considered 10 years ago. And there are hundreds more ramps in Hamilton than we reported back then. And I think around 1/3 of them passed current standards, which is relatively good compared to what was there before. And if you scroll down to another few pages, you'll see the schedule for improvement. So this is a basic plan for the next several years. So with which street sections will be addressed. We're prioritizing downtown locations mainly because that's the general expectation of Title II is that you're supposed to prioritize Title II and Title III. So locations that serve government buildings, schools, libraries, and this as well. So first we're looking at addressing Broadway, Elm Street, Falls Park Drive, and then later on, we'll move into more like purely residential areas, which are secondary and primary. Additionally, we updated some language from the old plan. We noted some recent changes that were made to the buildings. And we're planning to execute a brand new reevaluation of those next year, so the buildings and parks, that's according to the survey. I think that kind of covers it in summary. If you have any questions.
So it looked like some of the ramps in Carrick Glen failed.
Yeah, go back.
Do we have any maintenance bonds or anything we can use to?
That is correct. That is something that in time we're going to have to go back and we're going to have
Get a brand
there a few years in. Yes, that is correct.
So it's the installation there,
Did they not put the feeler bumps on there?
They did, it's just not at the correct slope that is required now.
or we check Baker's Point out there to make sure that they're,
Yes,
okay.
yes. Same thing, and we also made some adjustments to Huntsinger Farm. There were several of their curbs that also did not pass. Sections 4 and section 5, we've asked them to go in and make sure that they keep to the current standard.
So are the standards changing or
They changed a little bit, I think, in the grade. No, I know more in the technical sense of it, but.
Yeah, so the ProAg final rule was adopted recently. So there were a few changes to standards. But generally they're like pretty minor. It's like what used to be 2% now it's 2.1%. So I mean, contractors are not always with it when it comes to ADA, to be honest. So.
some should be changed?
So we just need to be
Definitely more
diligent.
less than
Inspecting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's,
Yes.
that's the other thing I want to mention is, we have, contracts with other communities as well. As new developments coming in, if you bring us in, we can help evaluate some of those before you final sign off on any new divisions that come in, so that make sure they're in compliance.
Well, I guess the question I have, was the Carrick Glen bill in compliance before the changes in the guidelines? So is it a scenario that there's just been a change in the guidelines, therefore they are now non-compliant? Or were they out of compliance from the get-go?
My understanding is a combination of both. I think that some of it changed, and I think that there was also an installation care as well. So how the things are installed.
So how are these handled if they are put in within the last 5 years and they were in total compliance at any point of installation? Is there a mandatory requirement to upgrade when you're talking about a minimal change in slope from 2 to 2.5 degrees?
So ProAg primarily applies to new structures and also ones that are altered. So assuming that they were okay before, like there's no blanket requirement that you have to replace all of it immediately. But if alterations are made, for example, like paving a road, alterations that would count. At that point, the ramps have to be brought to current compliance.
Legal-
Just-
legal
just re-
non-conforming.
Just repaving the road require reconstruction of the ramp.
Yeah, any ramp that touches a repaved roadway, basically. It's like, it really depends on the situation. But yeah, the transition plan just sort of demonstrates your commitment to continuous improvement in the bringing situation.
What is the annual budget allocation for the years that we have outlined here to address those deficiencies?
So we coupled those with our community crossings grant priorities. So as the road needs to be improved and preserved, we will also go in and we will make improvements to the necessary sidewalks and curb ramps as well. That is an average of about, well, it's a $1 million grant. The 80/20, it's now the 1.25 total build out per project. We also have a fund to go on that we're going to start using. They just started working on this. It's through Scott Reski, through improvements to Broadway this past year. And so several of those have been replaced. But I would say probably you're looking at in sections, probably $40,000-$50,000 a year just in curbs and sidewalks.
And that's not covered by.
And that is not covered. It's
Correct.
It can be if it is an existing sidewalk, it's an existing roadway, then those sidewalks and curb ramps are included as a. So that's where we have to make sure that we're strategic and that we make sure that we plan according to that. That is why those bonds and those maintenance bonds, are important, but if it is something that the developer had installed per what was approved, that is where we do not have that capability to go back and to require that reinstall. And that would be on the town. So we would have those scheduled out according to when those roadways would be ready for preservation project.
But again, that would be tied to the next CapEx project or major repaving
Yeah.
effort.
Capital improvements plan, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a follow-up. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We do have a recommendation form there for you to consider. We would like to be able to present this to town council next week. And so it would take a vote from your body.
Anybody on the board have more questions for these? Entertain a motion to approve the 2026 ADA transition plan as presented. Second. Second. All those in favor of the 26 ADA transition plan as submitted, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, thank you. Thank you for these. Thank you. Okay. Second item is proposed amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance, the flood damage prevention standards.
So this is a proposed amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance. This is regarding are Appendix E. It is the flood damage prevention standards that we have there, kind of the end of our UDO. As part of these standards, the current UDO identifies the floodplain administrator as the planning director. So as the town has kind of restructured and has replaced the planning director title with senior planner, as well as created the director of economic community and planning development here in the last few months, we were in need of making an amendment to that document to be consistent. In doing so and reaching out to the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, the Division of Water, we've been working closely with Doug Wagner. He's given us great guidance in this update. But apparently here in the last year or so, there has been some updates by FEMA as well as the state that as we make any amendments to this document, to these standards, we also have to bring it in full compliance with all the other standards. There is a red line version in your Teams folder, as well as in the final text here is being proposed. The full text and red line areas are minor. They are amendments to the model ordinance. They were tailored to reflect the town of Pendleton and brought also not in just alignment with FEMA standards and the state, but also in line with our UDO and the terminology that we had there. So there are about 6 different minor adjustments there. I can kind of go through those real quickly. Page 5 was regarding the definition of development. It removes some verbiage that development does not include activities such as routine maintenance. That would be like painting, re-roofing, road maintenance, and ag-related purposes such as like filling and grading. So it just removed that was not a definition, no longer acknowledged by FEMA. Page 7, it changed a little bit on the definition of hardship. It brought it in compliance with the UDO, stating that variances are to be exceptional, unusual, and peculiar to a property that is involved. Page 8, FEMA did require an update to the definitions of what we call FLOMAR and FLOMAR F. Basically, it pertains to the approval that when there is a site that is within the floodway or the flood fringe, that there is a conditional letter of map revision, which is a formal official name for approval for a project or a fill activity. So it just updated some of the terminology for the definitions on those pages. And then on page 14, that is where kind of initially kickstarted our need to update this document, was identifying and designating the planning director as the floodplain administrator, changing it to the director of economic community and plan development and his or her designee. So then that way, as that appointment then changes per and through the staff in the planning department, we are in compliance. And then page 15, there was some language added for clarification that the elevation certificate shall be prepared by and under the direct supervision of a registered land surveyor or a professional engineer. And then the last change was on page 30. It removes residential from the classifications of structures. It just made it to where all structures were applicable to this section. So these amendments are in accordance with the model ordinance, the most updated version. They are standard, it's a template that we followed, and it just brings us in full compliance. So on this, we likewise would ask for a recommendation to give the town council. It does need to get approved by town council as any of our other UDO amendments, and we'd like to put that in front of town council for consideration.
Questions or comments to these?
Yes, it is a public hearing. That's correct. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and open the public hearing at this time for the flood damage prevention standards. Any questions or comments to the board? The audience have any questions or comments in the flood order? Close the vote. Close the public hearing. I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the Unified Development Ordinance flood damage prevention standards as submitted. And have a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brad. Second. All those in favor of the flood damage prevention standards as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you. Okay. Consideration of interim 12-month zoning moratorium data centers development. Keep in mind that the town council has approved the moratorium.
Approved
Well,
it, but they-
if they are in favor of the moratorium, they presented it to us to approve it, to go forward with the 12-month moratorium. So, really, I know the data centers are a hot topic. But I want the data centers. Really, the comments tonight would just be towards if you were against the moratorium. 12 months.
Just as a point of order, the agenda item tonight is for this commission to make a recommendation to town council, and its adoption. It's similar to what we've done in the last two agendas. This body is making a recommendation to council. Adopt or choose to, whether or not wants to adopt 12 months.
So, so thank you, President. So yes, the last item on the agenda tonight does pertain to the petition, that was filed by the planning department. And under, just as you mentioned, the direction of town council to establish a temporary 12-month moratorium, on the review and approval of standards in relation to proposed new data center facility. The purpose of this moratorium, is to provide sufficient time for staff, the planning commission, the town officials to evaluate applicable regulations, research best practices, assess potential impacts, and develop any amendments to the UDO as deemed appropriate and necessary to ensure any future data center development is compatible with the town's long-term planning goals and public interest. Prior to tonight, we did receive 7 letters of correspondence. Those have been added to our records and will be official part of our records as well. The all those correspondence and documentation is provided also in your team's folder. So the request tonight here, and we'll give a little bit of background information as well for this public hearing, but the planning department is seeking a recommendation to the town council regarding the adoption of the 12-month moratorium on an acceptance, review, and approval of applications for any new data center facilities within the town of Pendleton. So a little bit of the background, although the town has not been approached, and we do want to, make mention of that, the town, the planning department has not been approached by any developer of interest in building, constructing a data center within our town boundaries. But over the past several months, if you all know, that the town and adjoiner communities have experienced an increase in public interest and discussion regarding the potential development in this nature within our community and surrounding areas. Further, landowners outside of the town boundaries, right on the outskirts of our town boundaries, have been approached, inclusive of land that is within the town's expanded water territory. So at the June 18th hearing for the town council, there were several members of our public that addressed the town council to express concerns regarding the potential impacts associated with data center development. During that public comment, residents requested that the town consider implementing a temporary moratorium to allow sufficient time for review of our regulation. The concerns expressed that evening, including and other topics as well, utility infrastructure demands, including electric power and water resources and the strain on those, environmental impacts and sustainability, noise generated by mechanical equipment, emergency backup generators, public safety and emergency response considerations, and the adequacy of our town's UDO to address this unique and evolving land use. So following these public comments, as mentioned, the town council did discuss this with our planning department, and we both agreed on the need to evaluate and amend the appropriate, as deemed necessary, the town's current regulations through our unified development ordinance. So at our July 9th, 2026 town council meeting, the town council gave direction to myself and asked me and directed me to formally file a petition requesting consideration of this 12-month moratorium. And in order to allow us that time that we needed to review our regulations and to prepare any necessary amendments. So that, in the meantime, we did file that petition and we also issued a public hearing notice on that. So just to kind of start here, we did provide some of this information. We'll kind of just give a really quick overview here as far as our existing planning framework. It does provide some natural protections for this type of development. But although the town's comprehensive plan, our future land use plan, our zoning ordinance, and our unified development ordinance do not specifically call out, identify, or regulate or prohibit a data center development, they do contain some numerous policies, development standards, and planning principles intended to protect our community and guide responsible growth. These documents do provide a strong planning foundation. However, staff does believe that additional data center specific regulations should be evaluated during this unique, due to the unique scale, operational characteristics, and infrastructure demands associated with this type of hyperscale facility. The comprehensive plan here, and you'll see kind of outlined here above you here on the screen, is that it does establish long-term planning objectives. It's intended to preserve Pendleton's character while accommodating responsible growth. Although the plan does not specifically address data centers, it does provide some other protections, such as protecting the town's community character, directing growth to appropriate locations consistent with our future land use map, preserving agricultural land and open space, encouraging compatible land uses while minimizing the conflicts between industrial and residential development, promoting quality site design, coordinated infrastructure planning, and environmental stewardship. And then at last, ensuring that new development supports our long-term vision. Our future land use map, and if you want to go scroll down to that, Stephanie, it does identify only one general area intended for future industrial development. And that is here on the very far west, purple outlined in the blue. That is within the jurisdiction of the town of Pendleton, and it's located there at 700 South and State Road 13. The comprehensive plan for this area and the definition of industrial, it doesn't designate if it's heavy industrial or light industrial, it's just general industrial. But it is limited to low and moderate intensity manufacturing, warehouses, and logistics. It minimizes disturbances between lighting, odors, noise, vibration, other operational impacts. It is to be concentrated along the major corridors and also to provide a separation between that type of use and our residential uses, lower density residential neighborhood. And then you can see here it's kind of broken down in our comprehensive plan, primary uses and secondary uses in which those do not support data center type facilities. Moving on to our existing zoning and our unified development ordinance, under those planning documents, a modern hyperscale in staff analysis would fall more into our heavy industrial land use due to its operational characteristics and those potential impacts on environment, the utility demands, also those potential noise and sound odors associated with the mechanical cooling equipment, emergency generators, as well as stormwater management infrastructure needs, as well as a large footprint site development. But in also looking in, and you can scroll on down as well with our our land use map here, you'll see highlighted in yellow, there's only 3 areas that are identified as heavy industrial. One of those is pretty much built out. There's no remaining development capacity, or 2 of those. The one here in the center, as well as on the very west end. Then the one kind of in the south east end of our community, there's about 25 acres left undeveloped in that 3 to 4 acre area. And these type of developments do generally take about 200 to 500 acres or more to develop. But also considering kind of those restrictions and those natural protections that our UDO, our comprehensive plan provide, there are also some other layers of protections which any other development in our community would require a rezone coming through Plan Commission and ultimately through Town Council, as well as potential conditional use through the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then last, the only other, I guess, other piece of protection is our gateway overlay. There's a lot of architectural and site development standards that would also apply. But that being said, although the Unified Development Ordinance currently contains some of those protections and provisions that are applicable to this type of industrial development, we do believe that additional standards specific to data centers should be evaluated to ensure that our town's regulations adequately protect public health, safety, and general welfare. Looking into those things and those impacts that we previously mentioned. So we believe that proactively reviewing and strengthening the UDO will put us in a better position to be able to balance future economic development opportunities with protection for our community. While our current provisions do have some protections, they are not specifically drafted to address the unique operational characteristics of these type of facilities. And so we do believe that a comprehensive view, giving our staff 12 months to be able to complete a full assessment, taking a look at what is seen and what has worked well with areas around us, and within our county as well. We would like to be responsive to this increase in type of interest in land use. And we are here recommending to your board for consideration of a favorable recommendation to town council to approve this 12 months moratorium.
Any comments, or questions from the board? So,
One, do we have a strategic plan around what's going to happen by the planning board here? Like, what are we gonna do? I hear you saying we think we need to be specific recommendations and whatever it's updates to the UDO, but before we go into and say, hey, we're gonna hold on 12 months, what are we going to do?
Yes, in the next 12 months, our planning department's going to go under really in-depth research. I've got a course that we're going to be taking here at the end of August that AIM is offering. I'm going to be looking into other ordinances. I've got a couple of ordinances already. What I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to bring our planning commission together as a workshop, similar to what we did for solar farms. I think that worked really well, but kind of bringing that together for us to determine as a group if it would be appropriate to just changing some provisions and definitions within our matrix, within our zoning tables and classifications, if that would be sufficient, or if we wanted to go with a full-fledged appendix that has all the standards that if we did have any type of hyperscale data center, what that would look like, what all standards that they would have to comply from build to then also demolition if they were ever to leave like we did for our solar.
Are there any efforts in the region to gather other towns and areas that are facing the same issue nearby? Because I mean, we could prevent it here, right past the yellow line, they can happen right next door, right?
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, is it our place to initiate that type of consortium to have others in the area to try to join with us? I mean, it seems like that might be worthwhile.
Yeah, very good point. The county, they have established a 6-month moratorium. Currently, they're in the midst of getting a 12 months. So getting that extended here, I anticipate here this month. Town of Ingalls as well. They have already enacted a 12-month moratorium. But I anticipate Larry Strange, he's the planning director for the county, and then also Neil Stevenson, he is the planning director, town manager for Ingalls, and for us to all kind of work together. We do have the city of Fisher that had initiated a full ordinance on this. We're going to take a look at that and see if that's something that would be best for our community. And yeah, that is definitely something that we want to make sure that we kind of pull together and work together, you know, on behalf of our community.
That's my last comment. So if we, in the recommendation tonight, if we want to approve the suggestion to 12 months, can you put a codicil in there to expand the date range if we feel like we don't have that adequate information pulled together? The reason I ask that is because the whole country's doing this, right? Like, so the longer we wait, the more information we'll have, so I'm just wondering if there's something we can do with the verbiage to at least leave that open for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the means in order to come in to extend that moratorium. We also then likewise on the flip side that if we feel that we have adequate standards in place and we've come to a conclusion on how we want to address it, we can remove that moratorium before that 12 months too. Yeah.
Questions, comments?
I guess I do have one question since Scott's here. So with the expanded water territory, we now have sort of an overlap between the town of Pendleton, unincorporated Madison County, and the water territory, as I understand it. Water seems to be the most critical resource when it comes to both sourcing the high volumes of water for cooling, as well as the discharge from these sites. How has the water utility assessed what the impact of a hyperscale data center would be on our infrastructure, and more importantly, the impact on our normal development plans within the town?
So I think part of the moratorium is to look at that and look at the infrastructure, all the aspects. Utility and water is probably going to be right at the top. As you know, it's the proposed area is right on top of the aquifer that we draw water from. It's right next to the same, right next to Ingles well field. Our major well field is just down the road and south. So part of the evaluation of sure we'll look at is what things need to be in place to make sure that any type of development does not draw so much water that you can't have the planned development that you're planning on having. So I'm saying not only to, is there gonna be enough water for the existing customers, but the North County growth that will happen as the growth comes out of the system. I'm sure we'll look at other things like utilities with water.
And will that also include the discharge of water?
Yeah.
Post circulation through the facility?
Right.
That appears to be in the Indianapolis Metro Lebanon cases, a major concern as to where that water is reinserted and the impact of that water on.
Right. So how much would it draw if it wasn't a closed system? How much can we handle if it does? Use a closed system, and even if it does use a closed system, what does it mean if there's a spill system right on top of the aquifer? I think those are just all things we have to evaluate on any type of facility.
Either town or in the adjacent service area that we are responsible for from a water resource perspective.
My only additional comment is just, some of those issues are because it's not returning back to the same watershed. Which in this case, it wouldn't necessarily be, but it's water's been piped into some of those areas that. My other option, it's not so much from a planning perspective. It's more planning from the water is just looking, I suggest for the water boards to look at, because it goes beyond the town now, is the pricing for industrial going metric. Some of those other things that I've mentioned in the past, system development, different levels for industrial, all of that should have consideration now that the boundaries are expanded.
Debbie, could you scroll down to page 6, the last map, Connor?
Yeah.
Keep in mind that fortunately, we don't have a lot of land available that's attracting to that. Particularly the yellow outlined areas, there's no interest there for those people. And that's good for us. Secondly, go back up one page, Connor.
Yep.
That area down along the interstate there is already, the yellow is already marked for residential into there. I don't see that being changed over there, so we're pretty well protected in the city limits. But to Brad and Jen's comment, Scott as well, it's over the town line if they're gonna start drawing from the water, coming back with their water, or discharge. I know regional waste, Walker Regional Waste, they couldn't handle the data center discharge and plant, so it's gonna happen to close the loop. If it ever will come out there or whatever. Any other questions from the board? Yeah, are there any comments from the audience? Remember, this was, the comments would be to disagree with Moore's Law.
Hi, I'm Michael Garinger. Thank you, members of the board and members of the public for hearing me today. I asked for a point of clarification. I heard you say that only opponents of a moratorium may speak. Is that what I heard correctly?
Well, that's fine, but you're for the moratorium, I think. General consensus is they are.
Oh, okay. Well, I hate to assume anything, but I'm wondering if it's about time constraints. If it is about time constraints, perhaps the board could set a motion in a second to set the specific time that people are allowed to have, maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes.
That's 3.
The limit is 3?
Yes.
Okay. I am for your moratorium. My own personal experiences, I've spoken with thousands of people in South Madison, including Pendleton, Anderson, Markville, LaPel, Ingalls, Chesterfield, and Alexandria. And I've encountered 4 people that are for data centers. 2 of them, one is a high electrician, high voltage electrician, and another is a concrete person. And I can't blame them for wanting to develop wealth for their family. And the other 2, one gentleman, he had an interesting perspective. He said, I would rather see 600 homes across the street. No, I'm sorry. He said, I'd rather see a data center than 600 homes across the street because there'd be more noise and more problems associated with something like that, which I thought was a unique perspective. The other gentleman, he just loved the technology. He couldn't get enough of it. He would live next to it. And so in my own personal experience, I could assertively say the vast majority of citizens I spoke to would not be adversely affected at all if a data center was never allowed to be in Madison.
Hello, my name is Tandy Holloway Jones and I live at 5668 West 1100 South here in Pendleton, unincorporated Madison County. And again, I've said this during the town council meeting, I'll say it again, Denise, you are so well prepared. You've taken our thunder away. You've told everything that we would have said, right? And we so appreciate your involvement in all of this. So thank you. A couple of things I wanted to point out from Denise's synopsis is Madison County did approve a 12-month moratorium yesterday. So we were successful now in Ingalls, Madison County, and hopefully now in Pendleton. You mentioned that the town of Pendleton is pretty landlocked with regards to high volume acreage. But even 2 miles away, there's plots of 500 acres, 600 acres, 400 acres. And if we don't think that will affect the town residents of Pendleton, then we have a whole lot more research to do. Because it will affect the town of Pendleton, not only just water, drainage, noise. I think if a data center were built 2 miles outside of your town limits, you're gonna hear it. I've seen them. I've been to 2 different data centers and operations. They are very loud. They have lights. You can see them from miles away. Another thing is I would like to request that a committee be formed of Pendleton residents when the data center ordinance is being drafted. That way you can get resident involvement as well as committee members. I think, another thing about the landlocked land, I'm sure you're all aware that, the state has passed, Senate Bill 270, which, sets forth a grading system for townships. And if there are any townships that fail, they have to merge, right? They have to merge with something, either a township, a town, a city, somewhere. So that pristine, area of Pendleton may not look like that next year or the year after. So we have to, if we're gonna do a UDO for Pendleton, we need to get it done and we need to get it done correctly, right? Not just for today, but for tomorrow as well. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, friends, neighbors. My first time doing this kind of thing, so I'm a little nervous when I'm speaking, so I hope you forgive me. I just came from working in my shop as well. My name is Nancy Hayes. I live at 750 East, 900 South in the unincorporated part of Pendleton. I applaud and I am very grateful for the 12-month moratorium. But I am also concerned about what the gentleman there said about the aquifers and the water usage, because he did mention 900 South. Now, I don't know where that is in, next to like where our family farm is. Our family farm has been in operation since 1853. The farm has been there a very long time. My father-in-law was born there. His grandparents built the barn using wooden pegs. His grandma, they had cows and pigs and, right now we do soybeans and corn. So, but just a side note, I'm not a native Hoosier. I was actually born and raised in New York. But Pendleton is my home. I love it here. I appreciate the people. I love the way of life here. I love the nature that surrounds us. And for anything to put that at risk is terrifying. Because if we look around at communities that didn't have a chance to speak up before the wrong things happened, before they lost their power, they had no choice. They were forced into doing things that they didn't want to do and having decisions made for them that shouldn't have been made for them. And you mentioned about having communities come together. I mean, we're neighbors with people in Fortville and people in Ingalls and people all around us. We're separate communities, but we're all together. And I think that if we pull our hearts and our thoughts and our intelligence and things that we're compassionate and passionate about, maybe we can work together to bring the change that's important. You know, instead of just, a David and Goliath situation. Unfortunately, the people with the money and the power, standing alone really just isn't an option very much anymore. Very seldom, very seldom. But I think if we somehow all got together, our neighbors and friends in our communities, I don't know, maybe we can make a big difference somewhere, somehow, and not, we didn't do something. So again, thank you again for your time and listening, and we need to keep up the good fight for the betterment of everybody, our children, our grandchildren, nature, our friends, our families. Just thank you so much.
Public hearing this time. Denise, anything else? Or questions? Okay.
I'll make a motion that we,
Yes, my Brett. Stephanie's your man online.
No questions.
So questions online. Go ahead, Brad.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation prepared by the planning department for town council.
Thank you, Brad. That's in regards to the 12-month moratorium. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the consideration of interim 12-month zoning moratorium in the data centers, please say aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate all you got. as it's a sensitive item, so we're all we can do. Any other comments or questions? Board, Stephanie, everybody on? Denise? Good, thank you. Again, thank you all. Meeting's adjourned.